Well, Aaron Rodgers is definitely back, and boy, did we hear what the last few months have been like for him. So where does he go from here? We'll discuss his options. Despite being the king, is Derrick Henry the most disrespected player in the NFL? We'll tell you why we're asking. And it didn't even take Patrick Mahomes a day to get right back to his old tricks. Good Thursday morning, everyone. Welcome to First Things First. Jenna Wolfe, we got Joy Taylor in for Nick Wright this morning. Joy, good morning to you. Brandon Marshall, Kevin Wiles. You still impressed by the no-look passes, Joy? Or are they getting like a little old at this point?
How can that get old? Look at that. It's amazing.
It's become commonplace for Patrick Mahomes already. I'm used to it. I need to see more. Impress me harder. All right, we'll get to all that in a second. We got to start this morning in Green Bay. So the Packers opened training camp yesterday, and Aaron Rodgers opened up about everything that led up to it. Unfiltered would be an understatement. He explained in detail yesterday what drove his drama-filled offseason, one in which he actually mulled retirement. One of his big gripes, not being involved at all with football decisions. Seems like that's already changing this season. All right, guys, sit back, relax, take a listen to Aaron Rodgers.
A lot of things that transpired. This wasn't, a draft day thing. This was started with a conversation in February that the season ended. And I just expressed, my desire to be more involved in conversations that directly affected my job. Also, I wanted to help the organization maybe learn from them some of the mistakes in the past, in my opinion, about the way that some of the outgoing veterans were treated. And just the fact that we didn't retain a number of players that I felt like were core players to our foundation, our locker room. And then it kind of progressed from there into a commitment for the 2021 season and beyond. That really wasn't given at any time. So for me, I had to assess the situation, not necessarily wanting to be a lame duck quarterback, especially after an MVP season, which I think you can understand. And then the other part in February was wanting to be a part of conversations involving free agents, which has never happened in my career. If you can't commit to me past 2021, and I'm not a part of recruiting process and free agency, if I'm not a part of the future, then instead of letting me be a lame duck quarterback, if you want to make a change and move forward, then go ahead and do it. That obviously didn't happen. I said it wasn't about the money, and the way that felt, kind of just doubled down on that. Nothing really changed throughout the summer. There were obviously some developments in the last week or so, but I was really working on myself and my own mental state throughout the summer, and at various points deciding if I wanted to even keep playing. But the fire still burns, and I wanted to be on a football team, and we got some things figured out in the last few days, and I'm here.
Everyone in that press conference was like, well, my job here is done. There was a lot there, Brandon. He really opened up. He gave you everything of what sort of transpired in his head the last couple of weeks, months. What was your reaction to what Rodgers said yesterday?
Hey, I love it. Joy, I think they call you, with the Uncle Shannon give you the nickname Queen
Petty.
What did he say? You're Queen Petty? Well, they call me Messy B. I'm Messy B. I love all of this, Queen Petty. Like, this is who I am. This is what I think the NFL needs to be, the MLB needs to be. We need more of this. We need more real, authentic conversations. There's been this shift in power over the last year, racial tension soaring in 2020. We're also talking about COVID-19, the players and the owners going head to head, and we're trying to figure out, what is this? Like, we need guys like Aaron Rodgers to be more real, more authentic. The owners can always hide behind the curtain and say, you know what? He's paid well. You know what? This thing is called a team. You need to sacrifice. Well, here's the deal. Everybody watching right now needs to go and watch, after our show, all 31 minutes and 39 seconds of Aaron Rodgers' press conference. This was so deep. This was so real. I mean, it was cool to watch, and I watched all of it. So here's the deal. What's happening in the National Football League right now, Joy, it's not this shift of, like, you know, power. It's really Aaron Rodgers and others are redefining what an NFL player is. Before, it's like, hey, you're a player, shut your mouth, go sit in the corner. This isn't the little LeBron James conversation, I'm more than a player, I'm more than an athlete. That's not this. For so long, we've been telling our players, you know what, just go come in and do your job. We got everything else. And what Aaron Rodgers is saying is no, that's not going to happen. Russell Wilson is saying, no, that's not going to happen. We want a seat at the table, and we want a seat at the table now. In the National Football League, we talk about guys being put in boxes and being institutionalized. And these guys are now saying, you know what, we are the most powerful piece in this whole entity, and now we're going to use that as leverage to actually be a part of the discussion, to be a part of the bigger business. Now, what it has to take is Aaron Rodgers and other guys to step up, continue to step up and push this conversation forward. But we didn't see that before. My only gripe with Aaron, Joy, is this. Why did it take 16 years for you to stand up against the organization? Now, you mentioned all these other guys, Jordy Nelson, you mentioned Julius Peppers, James Jones, and all these other people. Well, when your contract is up for discussion and you're in year 16 and they're about to treat you this way, now you want to go back and say, hey, why did you treat the other guys that way? You were Aaron Rodgers, starting quarterback of that franchise for 14 years. You should have done that before.
Well, two things. One, I would say it's the Tom Brady effect, which is my initial thought on why all of this is happening, and I'll get to that in a second. And second, I would say sometimes, you know, you can't truly empathize until you're in that situation. So, you know, you can say you support the other guys, and I'm sure he does, but maybe, you know, this is the part of the reason why he is standing up the way he is now is because, like you said, now he's the guy who they're kind of phasing out of the organization.
Push out, yeah.
Right. Now, he's been a great company man for a very long time, and now he's in a different situation, and he's realizing, hey, wait a minute. I'm Aaron Rodgers. You can't do this to me. And he's played his cards. I thought he was brilliant yesterday. You were watching an intelligent person play their hands brilliantly. He wasn't emotional, but had just enough humility. He made great points. He landed them. He took little jabs, but not too much. And he kept it real. I mean, it was a master class in, he read them to the T, honey. Oh, I loved it. I was here for every second of it and enjoyed it. Because we have been through a lot. Oh, I loved it. I mean, but it was really measured. It was really measured. It was really transparent. And I thought he really got his point across from his mouth, which I think was important. I didn't know how Aaron Rodgers was going to handle it. I always thought he was going to be in training camp, but was he going to continue this sort of passive-aggressive, speaking through other people, all of this mess that we've all talked about all offseason? But he didn't. He went straight for it, stood in front of the media, gave everyone his thoughts, what was going on, what he wanted, what he asked for, what he felt. And I thought he was very... almost relatable. I mean, if I'm a Packers fan, how can you watch that and feel like, wait a minute.
Right.
Aaron Rodgers might know a thing or two about this organization now that I think about it. So I thought he nailed it. It was a really crazy offseason for the Packers and for Aaron Rodgers. He stood up there. We got it straight from him, what he was feeling. And I don't think he's wrong. I don't think there's a winner and loser overall in the situation. I do think the front office took an L yesterday, but the compromise that these two parties have come to has set the Packers up to have their last dance. I do think this is the end for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. We'll see, and we'll talk about that later. But I thought yesterday was a really good day for Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so Joy, you mentioned Tom Brady, and I think you and I picked up on a similar vibe. Brandon, I thought the specter of Tom Brady hung over that entire news conference. Both from two organizations that Brady played for. One is the Patriots. Because the way that Aaron Rodgers was describing how the Packers organization ran, which is you don't get a lot of input on the personnel decisions, and we're going to cut guys before they're sort of done with they still have more left in the tank, but we're going to cut them, and we're going to try to save money. That's how the Patriots work. That is a successful plan if you have Bill Belichick pulling the strings. You also have to back it up. You got to win 6 Super Bowls. You can't run that playbook and win 1 Super Bowl because then you look foolish. And then you have the players able to say, like, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. So the other reason is this, and you said he's cutting a new path. I don't know. I think there's another layer to that because here was one of his other quotes. I'm not asking for anything that other great QBs across the last few decades have not gotten. He's not looking for special treatment. He wants to be treated like Tom Brady. And when he's talking about the recruiting process, here's an interesting fact. When Tom Brady left the Patriots organization, we didn't get a ton of say. I think he got more say than Aaron Rodgers, but Belichick's still obviously pulling the strings. Went to Tampa Bay. What's the first thing that we started to hear? Wow, Tom Brady, great recruiter, bringing guys in. And what happens? What do we see? Gio Bernard came in, Gronk obviously came in, AB came in, Leonard Fournette came in. Who scored touchdowns in the Super Bowl? AB, Gronk, Leonard Fournette. It's the first Super Bowl where every player who scored a point wasn't on the team the previous year. So I think Aaron Rodgers, listen, if you want to run the Patriots system, we have to win. It didn't work. Why don't we try to run the Tampa Bay system now? Let me be, literally, I don't have to pull the strings. I literally just want to be a pseudo consultant. Not even a real consultant, just pseudo consultant. Yeah. Give me a shout. No surprises. Bring me in. The takeaway for me is the Packers management was they mismanaged it. It was almost like a dereliction of duty on their part not to keep him involved in the situation. Now let's go the Tampa Bay route. Let me have more say in personnel.
Well, great job highlighting that. But I want to go back to New England, Wilds. Like, Tom Brady should have never left New England if Tom Brady actually tapped into what Aaron Rodgers is tapping into now. Look at what's happening now, Joy, with Aaron Rodgers bringing back Randall Cobb. And this whole word that we've been throwing around all week, concessions. That's what I mean by this shift in power, this shift in how we look at the football player. And what does that mean, football player? Is it just player, or do you need to add a little business to that? Tom Brady. Here's the problem. Tom Brady had Randy Moss. Why did Randy Moss leave town the way he left? Why was Randy Moss bitter? The last game Randy Moss ever played in, I was there. It was in Miami. And I went up to Randy Moss after the game, and I asked him for his jersey. He took it off. He said, "You can have this ish," right? Why? Because the way he was being treated. Wes Welker, why did he get pushed out the way he got pushed out? We're talking about one of the greats. We're talking about team. We're talking about sacrifice. Oh, all these guys in the locker room, we're all here together. Julian Edelman, grossly underpaid his entire career. Why? Tom Brady never stood up and said anything. Now you got Aaron Rodgers in his situation. Now Aaron Rodgers saying, Jordy Nelson, Clay Matthews, Julius Peppers, James Jones, John Kuhn, Casey Hayward. Well, that's great to do this in year 16, but what about in year 10 when those guys were getting pushed out? They have the power to be able to say, you know what? If my guys aren't back, I'm not back. If my guys aren't back, you have a problem with me. And because they are the starting quarterbacks and they have all this power, and if they tap into it, things will actually move. But we haven't seen that type of shift in the last, 10, 15 years.
I wonder how yesterday's presser landed with Packers management. They were all sitting around watching, biting fingernails. By the way, Rodgers and the Pack opened down in New Orleans week 1 on Fox. And speaking of New Orleans, because I just said New Orleans, they might not have Michael Thomas for that week 1 showdown. We will have much more on the Packers, and we're going to talk about the star receiver for the Saints, who might be gone before season's end. All of that. First things first on a Thursday morning. Rolling on. Time now for Drawing a Blank. Wilds, I bet you didn't know why Brandon liked you. Now you do. Talking some Saints, we discussed earlier in the week the team's reported frustration with receiver Michael Thomas. This after he waited to get off-season ankle surgery until June. Head coach Sean Payton addressing the situation yesterday. Take a listen to this.
It appears we're going to have to spend some time without him. It's disappointing, and we'll work through it with the other players that are here. But the surgery took place, and obviously, we would have liked that to have happened earlier than later. And quite honestly, it should have.
Ouch. Brandon, Sean Payton's comments on Michael Thomas are blank.
Round 8. Football season is back. The drama is back. So this is round 8. What do I mean by that? You have two heavyweights just going head to head, and they're in round 8 right now. And this thing can end in a stoppage. A stoppage is like, look, this is too brutal. We're just going to go with a trade. Or this is going to end with a TKO. A TKO, a knockout. Let's go knockout. And that knockout's going to look like this. That's either going to be Coach Payton saying, we're going to suspend this kid, or Michael Thomas turning around and saying, you know what, I'm not showing up. My ankle still isn't good. This is brutal right now. Sean Payton and Michael Thomas, they need to figure this out. This is all bad, Joy.
Ugh. What a disaster. Look, I like Coach Payton a lot. Legendary coach. I don't know what's going on here. That is it feels like a very emotional reaction to what's happening with Michael Thomas. That's a call out. Saying that it should have happened earlier. Again, I have a really hard time believing that Michael Thomas would wait to have surgery on purpose to mess with the Saints season. He's a football player. He wants to be on the field. He doesn't want to be dealing with recovery as the season starts. How does that help his career? So I would love to know what's truly going on behind the scenes here, because that is a very bold statement by Coach Payton to say that it should have happened earlier. What's going on here?
Can I have Joy? So we did this question earlier in the week with Joy, and Joy was like, no way. There's no way Michael Thomas delayed the surgery. And I was like, I don't know, Joy. It's like a little Pippen-esque. Remember, like Pippen was mad at the Bulls in his contract, and you didn't buy it. So you were, let's say, the Joy level of not... Have you moved it up a little? Are you now buying that this was purposeful on Michael Thomas's part based on Payton's reaction?
I mean, I can't call him a liar. Like, I can't sit here and say he's a liar, but wow. Like, that's a dangerous space to be in as a coach, to talk about one of your players having surgery later.
You didn't have to say that.
To come into the season.
That's exactly right.
This is very messy. Messy B. This is very messy for the Saints right now. Again, who benefits from this? Tom Brady.
Listen, I was able to be in New Orleans and see this stuff. These two dudes are ultra competitors. And here's the deal. It's not about, he delayed the surgery to get at the Saints and Coach Payton. That's not it. What it is Michael Thomas has his own routine. Drew Brees had his own routine. Drew Brees had his own guys. So Michael Thomas could have just said, you know what, I'm going to listen to my team instead of your team, Coach Payton, because my team has gotten me here. And at the end of this thing, he said, all right, maybe I need to get the surgery now. Now Coach Payton is upset. But Coach Payton didn't have to say that, Jenna. He didn't have to.
That's right.
Media training one-on-one. Speak through the reporter. Speak through the camera. You can control your own message. Yep. He wanted everybody to know that Michael Thomas could have had that surgery earlier. This is getting messy. Woo!
All right, well, reports now have Thomas back around mid-season, so that ain't great. Let's stick with receivers now. Talk some Davante Adams. He was the very best at the position last season, and now he wants to be paid as such. Will his contract situation loom over this coming season? Talk about that next. First things first. All right, we are now joined by the always effervescent Coach Eric Mangini. Coach, good morning. Nice to have your chipper self with us. We're talking some Aaron Rodgers. He wasn't the only guy, actually. Aaron Rodgers wasn't the only guy who stood behind the podium yesterday, waxed poetic about all things Packers. His receiver, Davante Adams, did the same. First time we've heard from Davante since finding out extension talks had all but stalled with the Packers. But when you lead the league with 18 receiving touchdowns, you have a right to be the league's top-paid pass catcher. Just ask Davante himself.
Aaron is here beyond this year. Would you be willing to not be the highest paid wide receiver if it means staying with him, or is that all he will settle for?
No, that's not going to happen. I don't want to. It's not about being a baby, but what other profession do you take less than what you have earned? That's not how it goes. And the fans may see it different in certain ways, and I'm sure there's a lot of fans that see it the same way that myself, my family, my agent, and most of the league sees it. But I'm not a baby, so I'm not going to not show up, and I'm not complaining about it. At the end of the day, I'm not poor right now. I'll be okay to get through and go try to win a Super Bowl again, and that's my main focus now. I mean, the offseason was working out and trying to come to an agreement, but we weren't able to do that. So now it's kind of time to lock in. And hopefully I answered your question. But yeah, I've earned the right to be paid highest in the league.
It's the season of truth-telling in Green Bay. Since the Packers' bye week in 2019, Davante Adams has more receiving touchdowns than he has games played. In fact, over that span, he's got more games with multiple touchdowns than games with no touchdowns. How about that? Brandon, you're up, buddy. What was your reaction to what Davante had to say?
It's not just Davante. I know we're just honing in on him and his comments, but it's everything that's coming out of Green Bay right now with Davante and also Aaron Rodgers. Like right now, what's happening is a shift, okay? And as a player, you're trained not to have these real authentic press conferences, to not go up there and say what's on your mind. You are trained, and guys, please hear me here. You are literally trained to go up there and say, money, we don't talk about that. We leave that up to the general manager or the head coach will talk about that. I'm here to talk about myself. You're trained to not even talk about other people. So for Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams to stand up there and be this real, it is awesome to see. Like, this is why I got in so much trouble in my career, because I was a guy that said, I'm going to just be real and authentic all the time. And I got in trouble because it was counterculture to the NFL's culture. So here's the deal. Davante Adams is right. He should be the highest paid. Why? Because he's up next. And that is the rules that they put in place. If you are balling like Davante Adams is balling and your contract is up, then yes, I need to reset the market. That has been the trend year after year after year. So I absolutely love this. And he also said something interesting, Coach. He said this, in America, be ready. Every time Coach and I talk about organizations and players and contract and money, you see the dynamic unfold right in front of your eyes. Coach is on one end of the spectrum, and organization and team, and I'm on the other end of the spectrum. Player. So I can't wait to get your perspective on this, though, Coach. But here's the deal. Here he said something interesting. When a player outperforms his contract, and they go to the table and they say, Coach Mangini, listen, I know you run everything in Cleveland, Coach. I think I deserve a new contract. Why does it take 6 to 9 months to get a deal done? Why are you trying to devalue me? Why you say, well, this or that guy? Why does it take so long? But if I underperform or if I get hurt and you come to me and you say, Brandon, you know what? We need some of that money back. Or Brandon, we're going to cut you. Those conversations take 5 minutes. There isn't any back and forth. And that's what he highlighted, and I think it's interesting, and I think the fans need to see that, and that's the struggle, and that's what we need to lean into and figure out moving forward in the National Football League. But give it to me, Coach. Give it to me, Mr. Organization.
First of all, I need to start with Jenna. The effervescent comment, you said that with a little bit of sarcasm. That was hurtful. So let's address that off.
I've never been sarcastic. I don't even know what that is.
And then, Brandon, I think this is going to shock you, but I'm fine with what he said, and here's why. Because just like we talked, here's why. Just like we talked the other day about the guys who get up and say, people are disrespecting me. I'm not, there's 8,000 reasons besides what it is. It's about the money. It's about the contract. And at the end of the day, that's the truth. And in this situation, he's got a very compelling argument. He's going in the last year of his contract. He's the third most touchdowns ever in the history of the NFL in a single season. He's got a 77% catch rate. he's the primary guy, so everybody's trying to stop him, and he's doing that without some other threat to take coverage away from him. He has a strong argument. I thought the most interesting thing he said is, "I'm not a baby. I'm going to show up." I didn't know if that was a dig at Aaron Rodgers. Right. I mean, that to me was a little bit telling. Now, to get to your second point about why it takes so long in negotiation is players will typically come in and say, "Hey, I want a new contract. Oh, and by the way, I want it to be this astronomical number that totally resets the market."
That's right.
And is unrealistic versus every comp in the world. But I want it now, and why won't you give it to me right now? Because that's not the reality of how it works. When you buy a house, you look at comps. When you buy anything, a car, when you do any type of negotiation, there's comps, and you have your opinion of what your value is, and the organization has their opinion of the value, and you try to get to a point that works for everybody. You wish it was easy enough where you say, "Hey, I want the most money that's available," and you're like, "Okay, no problem. Hope you're happy. Great to have you." It just doesn't work. There's so many other people and other factors that come into play when you're negotiating contracts.
Well, coach. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, get him for me, please.
No, go ahead, Brandon.
Queen. All right. No. So he went back and said we started these conversations in January and February. So why is it taking so long? You just highlighted all the things like why his argument is compelling. So why is it taking him so long? It's August. The dude is saying I deserve to be the highest paid. That's not hard at all. The organization is sitting back and they're not getting it done. If this was Jake Kumerow, who Wilds love and adores, if this was him, then then you say, brother, please. And it may take some time. But this is Davante Adams. He should already have a deal done.
But nobody knows what he's asking for. Is he asking for $50 million a season? Is he asking for the entire contract to be guaranteed with no offsets? There's so many different components to a contract, and you know that, Brandon. It's not as easy as just saying, I want to be the highest paid. Is he happy to be the highest paid by $1? Does he want to be the highest paid in every single year of the contract? There's so many asks and so many different ways to structure it. Does he want the money front-loaded or back-loaded? Like, all those things come into play, and it takes time.
It's getting very spicy in Green Bay, and I can't say that I don't love it. I love that Davante is coming out and saying this. I think actually that Davante and Aaron Rodgers are lockstep in this, because if you remember last week, Davante had said that the negotiations were off the table. Then all of a sudden Aaron Rodgers is back, and okay, now we can talk again. Well, obviously Davante deserves to be the highest paid, and Brandon, to your point earlier, he's up next. So he will be the highest paid if Green Bay wants to keep him, of course, which they should want to keep him, and they should pay him the most. DeAndre Hopkins is paid the most right now, and comparatively their contracts are very far apart. He's the next one to get paid, so he'll be the highest paid, and the next guy that has a great year and great couple of years and his contract comes up, he will be the next paid. That's how it works. So the market does reset, the salary cap goes up, and we freak out about how big the contract is, and then the next 2 years someone else signs a bigger contract and we get over it. That's how the game is played. What I think is interesting about the Davante Adams situation when it concerns Aaron Rodgers is we now pretty much all have a feeling that Aaron Rodgers isn't going to be there next year. So if I'm Davante Adams, it's of the utmost importance if I stay in Green Bay that I am paid the most and get the contract that I want, because I don't necessarily know who's throwing the ball to me next year. And I'm with Jordan Love in practice. Now, we don't know what Jordan Love is, and he hasn't had really a full offseason, and he's still developing, and we're not going to see him this year. But what if he's not ready next year? What if, even if he is ready, he's not going to be Aaron Rodgers, and this is a dependent position. You can't just have anybody throwing you the ball. This could be, if he ends up with Jordan Love long term and Jordan Love doesn't pan out and he's in Green Bay, this could really affect his money moving forward. So it's imperative that he is paid the most in the league right now. And if he's going to stay in Green Bay, they need to compensate him as such.
Yep, I think you're right, Joy. I want to dig a little bit more into the Packers, Coach. Every team was at camp. And all the news that we got from the other teams were, hey, look at this no-look pass from Patrick Mahomes. Hey, look at this CeeDee Lamb catch. For the Packers, it's like, hey, look at our quarterback laying out a decades-long series of reasonable issues with our management. and our other star talking about his contract. Like, I didn't see any highlights coming out of Packers. So do you think the fact that the Packers' first day was defined by two major news conferences is a sign, or two major, I wouldn't call it Davante's major, but you know what I mean, is a sign of dysfunction within the organization?
I would have signed up for every single day of my tenure as a head coach having press conferences like that if you're giving me Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams. I mean, you have two guys with unbelievable ability.
Right.
I've had a lot of good dudes that say the right thing, and
Great
yeah, that's
answer,
great.
Coach.
But they can't play like those two guys play. So they're both a little bit frustrated with their situation. That's not bad either. One of the best things is having a player on a contract year, because those guys go and work harder than anybody else.
You see how they think, America?
You heard Michael Jordan. You heard Michael Jordan talk about the need for motivation all the time. Great, you're a little pissed off. Perfect. You're motivated by the fact that you want to show that you're worth the most of any wide receiver. Great. All those things are fantastic from a performance perspective. And sometimes when you get a giant contract, the guy exhales, and then you don't get the same player. And Brandon, that's the truth.
Coach, there's a handful of those guys, but like you said, you've been around a long time. You know how to identify those guys. You guys talk about, how great we are in recruiting and scouting players. Well, you know what those traits are in those players who fold the tents up and pack it up and go home once they get those deals. Davante Adams isn't that. Aaron Rodgers isn't that. There's no reason Davante Adams should be going into the season playing on this contract, making, what is he ranked 18th as far as how much he's getting paid at the receiver position. That's ridiculous. This is Davante Adams, who I don't have as my number one receiver. I have DeAndre Hopkins there, but it's a strong argument who is number one. And Davante Adams, he's done it year after year after year, and he deserves to be on a new contract. Now, if I'm him, like I said the last couple of days, I probably wouldn't do it. I wouldn't do it because Aaron Rodgers is on the move. If Aaron Rodgers is on the move, I'm on the move. When Aaron Rodgers put his house up for sale, I'm putting my house up for sale. When Aaron Rodgers go to Las Vegas, if that's the choice he makes next year, then I'm calling him too and say, hey, we're a package deal. So if I'm Davante, I'm sitting back and I'm just going to go out there and ball again and be in better position at the end of this year, Jenna.
That was day one of training camp. Just imagine day 2 through whenever. It's going to be a fun. We're going to make Joy so happy. It's going to be petty day in and day out as we move forward. We're going to have much more on the Packers situation still to come. Oh, it's going to be fun. Fun in Wisconsin. Right now, though, we got to talk about the footballing king, the reigning two-time rushing champ. Is Derrick Henry the most disrespected player in the NFL? I'll tell you why we're asking next. But first, check out what our guy Nick's been up to this week.
Your king's fold, Phil. Huh? Your king's fold. You're folding. 100% you're folding.
Time extension.
So wasted time extension. You're definitely folding. Me talking's making it more likely that you fold. You're always folding. You're still folding. All right. Set of fives.
Nice hand.
Nick might have talked him into that.
I 100% agree with you, Maria, and this is something that Phil Hellmuth has not experienced to this point in any of these matchups.
Talking, I almost got away.
He's got the gift of the gab. The man does live television 5 days a week for a couple of hours at a time. He knows how to fill the space.
Hey, tonight's NBA Draft is featured on the free-to-play Fox Bet Super 6 app. You can just scan that QR code, download the app, answer 6 questions about the draft, and your shot to win $1,000. Simple enough. All right, back here talking running backs now. So Madden has been coming out with their ratings by position over the last week. It's all fun and games till you get to the running backs list, which had us all just a little perplexed, scratching the old noggin. The reigning two-time rushing king, the guy Brandon wanted to be the MVP last year, the stiffest of stiff armors, Derrick Henry, not at the top. Madden's got Christian McCaffrey as the top-rated guy, then Henry and Nick Chubb tied for second. You got Cook, Kamara, and others to follow. Taking that list right there, Brandon. Is your guy Derrick Henry, in your opinion, being disrespected here?
Oh, my goodness. Wow, y'all are getting my blood boiling this morning. We're talking about the wide receivers and not getting paid in the Davante Adams. Now we're talking about my MVP, the guy who should have been the MVP last year. You know, we're talking about the running back who, you know, was the eighth running back to go for over 2,000 yards and only standing next to Terrell Davis to go over 2,000 yards and 15 touchdowns. He should be a 99. Man, and this is disrespectful. Like, how do you not have him at number one? Now, Christian McCaffrey, there's no knock on Christian McCaffrey. He actually should be a 97 if we're taking out, you know, last year. We're just focusing on his raw skill and ability, and we're talking about moving on, and we're talking about this year. Absolutely. But think about what Henry has done over the last couple years. Not only has he been the best running back and gotten it done and went for 2,000 yards, but he also stayed healthy. Christian McCaffrey came off a big year where he was in the conversation to be MVP, Joy, and then all of a sudden he got hurt this year. He was banged up. He got back in the lineup, got banged up again. It is a war of attrition at the running back position. One of your superpowers and one of your talents need to be staying healthy. These are dudes that carry the rock or touch the ball 20 to 25 times a game. They are getting beat up, so they got to stay healthy, and Derrick Henry has done that. Okay, and he needs to be number one. Wilds. He not only needs to be number one, but he should have a 99, man, and get this right.
Okay, how about that? Well, they can, you know, maybe it changes throughout the year, so maybe he'll move up. You know who belongs on this list, Brandon? My guy, Jonathan Taylor. You know I'm a Wisconsin guy. Not really. My wife went to Wisconsin, so I don't think I get to be a Wisconsin guy, but just by proxy. This is since week 11. Now, remember, Jonathan Taylor, they were kind of like, it wasn't even, it was running back by committee. He was like one part of a three-headed monster. But then they're like, you know what? You're sort of like the most decorated college running back of all time. Why don't you sort of handle the load? He said, will do. Now, Joy, you got Carson Wentz back there. I think Carson Wentz can look out to Jonathan Taylor, who's gotten better at catching the ball, got better every year in Wisconsin, came into the league like, can he catch? Yes, he can catch. He racked up 300 yards almost through the air. So I think Carson Wentz can look at him. He's going to have he's going to be great. We know that defense is going to be great. I'm oddly all in on the Colts, Carson Wentz, and Jonathan Taylor, Joy.
Oh, finally you came to my side.
I am.
I got to remain calm. I got to remain calm throughout this so I can make my points. I mean, the disrespect to King Henry. All right, let me put my Queen Petty crown on and defend King Henry. If this is a list of receivers, then yes, Christian McCaffrey should be above Derrick Henry. But for so many reasons, this is egregious. Yes, Brandon, you're right. He should have a 99 rating. But Derrick Henry's 2019 season was better than Christian McCaffrey's 19 season rushing only. And Christian McCaffrey was injured almost all of last year. How is he ranked higher than Derrick Henry? And Derrick Henry's impact on his team is more evidence, considering that the Panthers were 5-11 2 years in a row. The reason that Derrick Henry, the reason that the Titans are relevant, the reason that they are competitive is because of Derrick Henry. His impact is shown in wins and losses, not just statistics, not just fantasy football, which I love, but we're talking about real life here. Like, this is Madden. You got to rank things how they show. What is the impact of this player on the field? Derrick Henry is one of my favorite players in the league. He might be my favorite to watch. There is no other player that looks like him, that runs like him, that has the power that he has. He's tossing guys with his pinky finger across the field. It's magic to watch, but this is absolutely disrespectful. I understand Christian McCaffrey is the dual threat, and he is an incredible player, but he was injured all last year, and what pushes Christian McCaffrey into a different space is his ability to catch the ball. But that's not, if we're talking about rushing, if we're talking about running backs, we talking running backs? No. Derrick Henry is the best running back in the league, and he is miles ahead of Christian McCaffrey as a running back. As a receiver, we're having a different conversation, but that's not what we're talking about here. He's absolutely being disrespected with this ranking and having Christian McCaffrey above him.
Yeah, and you're 100% right with what you're saying. We don't even have to talk about Christian McCaffrey. Like, he's a dog, but everything you said was on point. Just honing in on Henry. Think about this, and this is why I was adamant about him being MVP and us needing to change the conversation around the MVP, because it really is a quarterback award. That's what it's really come down to. But the hardest thing to do in the National Football League, there's two things, right? The hardest feats is to rush for over 2,000 yards and go for, have a season where you have 20-plus sacks. Those are some of the hardest things to do. They're barely done, okay? For this guy to be the 8th guy to ever do that, like, he needs to have way more respect. Not only put a 99 on his name, put a 99.5 on his name. We can't give a guy 100. But that's why this is so disrespectful, America, because this is one of the hardest things you can do in football. Joy, you know this. We've seen guys throw for 30 touchdowns year after year. We've seen them throw for 40 touchdowns. We've seen receivers go for 1,600 yards. We've seen defensive backs come down with 10 interceptions. But we rarely see this. This is something to be celebrated, and they're continuing to disrespect his name. They disrespected his name at the award show, giving Aaron Rodgers the MVP, and they're disrespecting his name now with this Madden ratings.
Well, I do think that Aaron Rodgers deserved the MVP, but I do also completely agree with you that Derrick Henry and Aaron Rodgers should have been much closer, because Derrick Henry actually affects wins and losses. If you take Derrick Henry off of that team, I don't even believe that they're in the playoffs. I think he's one of the most, if not the most, if we're really having this conversation, the most dominant offensive player in the league. If you look at his numbers, his consistency, his availability, and you know, obviously the offensive line plays a major role in running back success, but Derrick Henry is a whole nother level up from every other running back in the league to me, and I think that if you have eyeballs and you look at the statistics and you look at the effect that he has on that offense, that you would agree with me.
Eyeballs being the key. You're right, though. Availability is key for Derrick Henry. By the way, only 4 running backs have won 3 straight rushing titles. See if King Henry can join that elite group this season. We got to get back to our top story this morning up in Green Bay. Aaron Rodgers with his tell-all yesterday in his press conference. Is he right that he deserves special treatment? First things first, rolling on a Thursday morning. Welcome back. Time now for Stories to Start Your Morning, sponsored by Ram Trucks, built to serve. Aaron Rodgers not the only guy who stood behind the podium yesterday. Davante Adams did as well. First time we've heard from Davante since finding out extension talks with Green Bay had all but stalled. When you lead the league with 18 receiving touchdowns, you have a right to be the league's top paid pass catcher. Davante said as much yesterday. So, Brandon, what is your reaction to Davante saying he deserves to be the highest paid?
He does. This is the system that they put in place, right? You're a wide receiver, you outperform your contract, or you're any position for that matter. You outperform your contract, you should have a seat at the table, and let's discuss it. And then how you break it down, and this is this has been in place for years. All right, I'm a top 5 receiver. Larry Fitzgerald, he goes to the table. He gets a 4-year deal, $40 million contract, averaging $10 million a year, $30 million guaranteed. So now what you see happens is Andre Johnson comes back to the table, and Andre Johnson says, well, okay, I'm a top 5 receiver. I need a similar deal. If not the same, then I need a little bit more. And so then you have Andre Johnson, then you see A.J. Green, and that's how we get this market to where these players go from $10 million, or these wide receivers go from $10 million to 12 to 15 and now 20. Davante Adams is ranked 18th in the NFL out of all the wide receivers in contract, right? So think about that. He's one of the greatest wide receivers in the game, and he's playing at a high level. Statistically speaking, you can say he could be potentially number 1, Joy, and he's not there. He's not being compensated that way. So what Davante Adams is doing and what he's saying is just what's been in place, Wilds, for the past 20 years when we talk about business around the athlete.
Brandon, do you think that he's tied directly to Aaron Rodgers? Like you told your story about like if when Jay Cutler put his house on the market, Brandon Marshall put his house on the market. Do you think those guys are tied at the hip? Or do you see Davante Adams signing a long-term deal with Green Bay without knowing what Aaron Rodgers' future holds?
The toughest part and most important thing about this, especially in the National Football League, is the injury rate. It's inevitable, 100% injury rate, Joy. So he has to take that into consideration. But if I'm Davante Adams, I am tied to Aaron Rodgers. I'm tied to Aaron Rodgers because I know if it's not a career-ending injury, I can go make my money somewhere else. So if Aaron Rodgers put his house on the market, I'm putting my house on the market. I'm definitely tied to the hip with him.
Well, Davante is in a situation where, like you mentioned, he's the next guy up. So he absolutely deserves to be the highest paid. And like what the highest paid really means is it's your turn to get paid. And so the market has already been set. So you're going to reset the market. And then the next guy is going to reset the market, as you already said. So the principle of it is really just that. He's up. And he's the top receiver in the NFL who's next to be paid. Now, getting paid in Green Bay is interesting because you just mentioned Aaron Rodgers and being tied to Aaron Rodgers. If he's going to take a contract in Green Bay, aside from the fact that he's the top receiver, it's imperative that he is the highest paid because we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there next year, and he plays a dependent position. So even if Jordan Love comes in and he's competent, let's say he's good, he's still not going to be Aaron Rodgers league MVP, not right now. And how is that going to affect Davante's numbers over the next couple years and him getting the next contract, which may not be the highest paid, but will still be a very big contract. He's still in his prime. So he has to consider all of those things when he's negotiating, which is why he should not take anything less than the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. And look,
right.
Wide receivers are at a premium right now. All of the new rules are curved for the offense. Having a premier wide receiver is very important. There will be plenty of suitors to pay Davante Adams as he deserves, but he's got to be strategic with it if he's going to stay in Green Bay because their future is very uncertain.
Yeah, so much to unpack here. Here's that list again. He is 18th on that list. He's not top 5. He's not top 10. He's not top 50. He's 18th, and he is a top 5 wide receiver in 1 and 2 in majority of people covering the NFL's books, right? So there's a lot to this. Even when he talked wild, he talked about, look, you know, when a player underperforms, you know, a team comes and they say, look, we're not going to extend you, or they say, we need money back. And those conversations are quick. He highlighted that they've been having these discussions since January and February. Why is it so hard to get a deal done? I've outperformed my contract. You guys see that no one can stop me. There's people that can slow me down, but no one can stop me. So there's more to highlight there. In Green Bay right now, man, it's messy. And Queen Petty is just going to get a little bit more interesting as the days go by.
And it's only one day. That was day 1. Joy Taylor, thank you so much for joining us. We got to go. We'll see you tomorrow, everyone.